I'm going to speak tonight about a little piece of military history that Jules was keen to cover, something in the Vietnam War, and so it's the battles of fire support base Coral and Balmoral. Who's ever heard of those? Terrific, wonderful. So I'll go through what happened there. It's a neat little piece of Australian history that no one knows much about, but by the end of it, you'll all be experts, I'll tell you that. So, that ode was very nicely done, thank you very much. Here we go.
So being artillery, where's your hearing aids?
I'm sorry, you'll have to speak up. All right, the battles of fire support bases Coral and Balmoral, 12th of May to 6th of June 1968. So we're talking about 25 days. Who can remember back to 1968 like it was yesterday? All right, so 68 was busy times. And just think, when I'm going through this, what it would be like in Australia today if these sorts of events occurred and these sorts of casualties occurred. How would Australia cope? Anyway, so the background to the fire support base was the big picture, and the biggest thing which occurred in 68 was the Tet Offensive on the 30th of Jan 1968, the Tet Offensive. The Tet Offensive was shocking. So all of a sudden, on the 30th of June 68, 84,000 Viet Cong with many thousands of regular NVAs and soldiers attacked all over South Vietnam. So there's South Vietnam from top to bottom, and attacks just erupted all over the place, all at the same time, including in the capital, Saigon. Here's pictures of what was happening there. So there's they're South Vietnamese soldiers. They are South Vietnamese soldiers there. Americans there, casualties left, right and centre. That's a famous photo of a couple of dead US military police with other military police coming up to sort them out. People were massacred left, right and centre. The massacres at Hue, remember the city of Hue, 10,000 were rounded up by the North Vietnamese and executed within days. It was shocking stuff. There was blood, mayhem and chaos all over the show. That's a famous photo. Anybody who's seen that photo before? This is the police chief inside Saigon, and this is the police barracks were raided by a North Vietnamese party, and a whole bunch of his mates and their families were all rounded up and executed. And he knew about it, and that was one of the North Vietnamese that was captured. And they brought him to him, and he just blew him away, just like that, bang. And that was one of the most famous photographs of the Vietnam War. So this full-out attack to knock over South Vietnam, the communists lost about 45,000 people. It was enormous casualties. How would you feel like in the next week or so if 45,000 enemy, how would we cope with that? So 45,000 were killed. South Vietnamese lost about 3,500. The Yanks lost about 2,000, and civilian losses were in the thousands. It was just horrendous. So where were we when so there's Saigon there. So we basically had a full brigade there. If for those that are familiar with the military, we had 3 infantry battalions there, numbered very opportunistically 1, 2 and 3. RA, the 1st, 2nd and 3rd battalions of the Royal Australian Regiment. And they were basically based down here, I think that's Bien Hoa, and up at Phuc Thi province up here. So there's Saigon there, which was the main area of attack. And in the Tet Offensive, there were 2 particular battles there, which on the 1st of Feb and the 18th of Feb, involving 3 RAR. So we were in it to a little bit. On the political front, if you recall the political front, the US Secretary was concluding there's no military plan. President Johnson said, okay, look, I'll negotiate with the North Vietnamese. We'll call partial halt. And then he says, I'm not going to, go for re-election again. The North Vietnamese, realising that the losses they were taking, said, yeah, sure, we're prepared to negotiate. And so on the 10th of May, that's when the Paris peace talks started, if you can recall those, the farces that those were. On the military front, even as they were talking about peace, the Vietnamese were pouring 12,000 troops per month down the Ho Chi Minh Trail towards the south. an old communist ploy. Talk peace over here and fight the war over there. They did that all the time. And then on the 5th of May, so when was the Tet Offensive? End of January, so it's now the 5th of May. They then do it again. They start a second Tet Offensive all over South Vietnam again, 119 locations, and again they lost thousands. They just got smashed. So at this point, one ATF, one Australian task force, the brigade, is directed to move to Binh Duong province as part of a plan to block enemy operations and to intercept enemy forces moving to or from Saigon. Mission: shut down the enemy supply and withdrawal routes pertaining to Saigon. And the area that we were moving into, it was known that there were 5 communist regiments in the area, with more expected to pass through. So it was basically a line of supply. We were being sent in to cut and stop them using it. So it's busy stuff. So here's what the enemy were. We had a regiment, another regiment, got a battalion, got all these infiltration groups. You've got recordless rifle companies. Basically, it was a full division of enemy that we were moving into the area with. Right, so that's what we were to do. So we were down here. It's the first Australian Brigade level operation since World War II, and we're moving up here to cut that route. And we've got, in the Australian Task Force, we've got 1 and 3 RAR. We've got 12 Field Regiment Artillery with 2 batteries. And we've got a squadron of APCs, and we had a United States self-propelled battery of artillery as well, 8-inch stuff. It was nice guns. Oh yes, they were very nice guns. So it all gets down to this day, Sunday the 12th of May. Sunday the 12th of May, and the plan is, so if you can have a look, so that yellow circle, this is now it. And so there's 3 areas of operations, AOs they're called. So there's Bondi here, which has got fire support base Coral in it. You've got Newport here with a fire support base there, Balmoral, and you've got AO Manly over here with a fire support base in there as well. That was the big plan. So what happened? Right, so the task was to secure the fire support base with the infantry, and so we're talking about here. So we're moving into AO Bondi in order to set up fire support base Coral. Moving there, the US infantry are there and fly in one of the infantry companies from 3 RAR, then fly in the entire 1st Battalion and the remainder of 3 RAR, then fly in the guns of 102 Battery and 161 Field Battery, which is New Zealanders, plus bits and pieces. So infantry in first, then bring in the guns, that sort of stuff. The guns don't like being out there on their own. We feel sort of vulnerable and ill at ease. And so the role of infantry is to protect the artillery, if you didn't know. So no infantry here. Anyway, so protect the fire support base with some infantry, and then let the infantry move out and establish their own positions. And then the road convoys would come up and fill in the gaps. So that's the plan. Sounds like a good plan. Everybody happy with that plan? Hands up those who are happy with that plan. Sounds great. Terrific. Let's see what happens. Righto, the reality was that there was inadequate vague orders, poor landing zone selections, and there were subsequent confusions, and then there were changes throughout. So, you're moving and you've got 1 day to occupy the real estate and then set up, and it just didn't work. So the artillery recon arrived at midday, more confusion. They said, "Oh, we don't like this site. We'll go and have a look for another site." And while they're looking around for another site, the US Chinooks bring in the first guns, who dump them at the first site, saying, "Well, we've got to put them somewhere." So the Kiwis get dumped, and off the Chinooks go. 3 RAR begins to fly in. And then the artillery recon finds a better position. So the Kiwis were dumped down here, Kiwi artillery, and then they found a better artillery position, which was that one. So that actually became fire support base Coral. The other battery was then delivered to the new location. So we've now got the artillery split by about 1.5, 2 Ks. and then in comes the infantry and the headquarter elements, and the last elements arrive just on dusk. So here's some photos of what it looked like. So that's the US Chinooks, bringing in the M2A2 105mm howitzer. So you can see the country. It's flat, scrubby sort of country. It's been cleared, so that's all right. Big stores coming in a bigger helicopter. Stuff arriving at fire support base. More stuff coming in, and there's a shot of fire support base from above. Basically, what you've got there, you've got a circular element there, and there's gun pits there. There's everybody's digging in. So that's what it looks like. Right. So by last light, at the first block, you've got the Kiwi guns sitting over there somewhere, and you've got three companies from one of the battalions. Then you've got a whole bunch of people at the actual fire support base itself. You've got companies are scattered around, and the last elements arrived just on dusk, and there was not much of a sense of urgency about things. So a small bulldozer had started to build the gun position, so the guns would be protected by a wall of earth, and stuff was beginning to happen. And so basically this is what it looked like. So you've got the fire support base, Coral, here. You've got 102 field battery, you've got headquarters of the guns, you've got a mortar platoon, you've got elements of the infantry, and then you've got other companies from the infantry have moved out, and they're now beginning to go into the areas and patrol. And then off to the southwest, you've got the Kiwi guns down there, all scattered around. And this has all happened in the space of one day. At the beginning of the day, no one was there. At the end of the day, that's where everyone was. All right. There's two people on the battlefield. There's you and the other side. The other side, aren't dumb, and they're not blind. They see what's going on, and so they see the guns being flown in, so they go, let's go and see what's going on. So they conduct a recon, and they go, let's smash them while they are unprepared and while they are, all over the place. Now's the time to hit them. So a quick attack from the north. He sees that the guns, in a battery there's 6 guns, and they're all pointing to the east. So he said, right, we're going to come in from the north at 90 degrees so that we don't go straight into their muzzles. And then it all started at 5:30. 5:30 p.m, the first NVA patrol bumps into a 1 RAR patrol about 2.5k north, and there's a bloody shower of shot, and 1 NVA is killed. 6 hours later, it's now getting on towards midnight, 1 RAR company is hit by a salvo of RPGs and machine gun fire, and 2 of our blokes are killed. The company calls for artillery support. 3 of the 6 guns are then turned around to the north to provide fire support for them. And then it really starts to happen. So it's now just after midnight, and it's now Monday the 13th, and the 1 RAR mortar crew, they spot an NVA patrol and they engage them with machine gun fire, 3 enemy killed. At 1:45, a sentry on the mortar position sees what's coming, and this is what he calls over the radio. There's at least 400 noggies only 50 metres away, all gibbering. And then it happened, bang. The fire support base is then hit with a barrage of mortars and rockets. The massed ranks of 275 infiltration battalion attacked. 1 RAR mortar platoon was the first to receive them. They just basically went, the North Indians went straight over the mortars. They didn't have time to fire the mortars. They basically had to pack up and move out, and they lost 5 killed and 8 wounded in no time flat. The enemy then swept on towards the guns, which were protected by earth buns. The gunners were using their personal weapons, rifles, submachine guns, machine guns, to defend the guns. Are also firing the guns themselves at point-blank range, firing HE straight at the enemy to keep them off. The front left gun, number 6 gun, was overwhelmed. The guys had to pull out the bit from the breech and withdraw, and the enemy captured the gun. So gun number 6 was then continually sprayed with machine gun fire for the rest of the night, and one of the other guns was permanently put on it so that if it moved a second, we'd just fire at the gun so they couldn't turn that gun and use it on us. At the mortar platoon, Lieutenant Jensen called the New Zealand artillery, onto me. I want the rounds onto me, we're being overrun. So the artillery came straight down. 20 mils from them. The enemy tried to then use our mortars against us. That didn't work. And he called for a second lot of artillery, and this time he got Splintex straight across the position. Splintex, who knows what Splintex is? This is Splintex. That is a Splintex dart. A round of an artillery, 105mm round of Splintex has about 4,000 darts in that. And you fire it and you detonate it at the muzzle, and you got 4,000 of those going out like that. If you're in front of it, it will ruin your day. I can guarantee you that. So that's what we were using. The remaining guns on the gun position were firing Splintex to clear the North Vietnamese off the position. How big are they? About a nail. About that length. And if you saw it, it's crimped on the tail, so it's sort of like got flight feathers. So look, they are extremely inaccurate. So as soon as the projectile bursts and releases the Splintex, look, it'll go a couple of 100 metres. But look, they found some of the North Vietnamese pinned to trees afterwards, just nailed there with the darts. So the Splintex really ruined the North Vietnamese time. And then came the United States gunship, Spooky and Puff the Magic Dragon. Spooky drops flares, and Puff the Magic Dragon has got 3 miniguns, and there they are there. So that's what it looks like. So one of them is dropping flares, and the other one's doing circles, and that's the guns going. That's what it sounds like. You hit the minigun, just brrr, and that's you hear that sound, you go, oh, that's a nice sound. I'm glad I'm not underneath it. That's how they work. So the North Vietnamese were now on the back foot. The fighting continued until dawn, and then they began to withdraw. A counter-attack by the gunners to get their gun back was made, and they did. The North Vietnamese had tried to destroy it with a satchel charge. The gun was damaged but not destroyed, and it's now on an exhibition at the Australian War Memorial in Canberra. At 8 a.m, the North Vietnamese broke contact and were pounded by artillery and airstrikes as they withdrew. Our casualties. So, all fun started,
midnight.
Yeah, midnight. It's over by 8 a.m. We've lost 5 killed and 28 wounded. If that happened today, look, it's small beer compared to World War I and World War II, but today, if that happened today, you'd be devastated. Anyway, we counted 52 bodies around the fire support place, captured 1 wounded prisoner, and there were numerous blood trails indicating that other people have been dragged away. So that's pictures of the battlefield, and what do we got? And there's a picture there, so you can see that's the earth bunding protecting a gun. That's what the gun positions look like. That's M2A2 with the bund around it. That's number 6 gun after it was recaptured, with some happy gunners there. They got their gun back. That's it again, and that's the gun now in the Australian War Memorial. Right, so it's now Monday. Later in the day, another fire support base was established, if you recall. So we're in Bondi, and that was all at Coral. So everything was happening there at Coral with the Kiwi guns there. They then move into Coogee and establish, they go into Manly and establish the fire support base at Coogee. That's the next thing that happens. And then the road convoy started to come in from the south. They'd been driving all through the night. They started to arrive. So we've now got APCs and United States self-propelled artillery. And in the next couple of days, the fire support bases are substantially reinforced with the rest of our troops, and our people then start actively patrolling the areas. So that's one of the APCs, an M113 armoured personnel carrier. And then, so this is Sunday and Monday. It's now Thursday. The second major enemy attack occurred. So big attack again. They've penetrated the lines. They're into the pits before the attack is held. 2 further attacks are launched over the next couple of hours. Both were held at the perimeter. At 6:45, the North Vietnamese broke contact again, pounded by an artillery as they withdrew. We lost another 5 killed and 21 wounded, and we counted 34 killed around the position. On that same day, we then started to get our tanks, Centurions. Who's familiar with Centurions? Right, so that the Cents started arriving. So artillery got the Splintex, as you've seen. Armour have got canister. So canister is slightly different. The canister round, you've got long rods in it, okay, and they've all been scored. So when the round detonates at the muzzle, the rod then breaks into small little, cylinders, metal cylinders, and they just rattle through the jungle. And those rounds were excellent at clearing the jungle. When you couldn't see what was going on, a couple of rounds of armoured canister, and you could see everything. It was quite wonderful. So on the Friday, 3 RAR moved out, established a new fire supply. So we've now got Coral there on the Sunday. We've got that on the, when did I say that was the Monday, and it's now the Friday, and they've gone to establish fire support base Balmoral up there. And then the next day, we've now got armoured vehicles moving out, and they have a minor contact with the Vietnamese. And then on the Sunday, another North Vietnamese battalion hits Balmoral. As usual, the attack begins with an intense and accurate bombardment of mortars and rockets. We lose 2 killed and 14 wounded. Another attack is also launched against Coral at the same time. So Balmoral's being hit to the north, Coral's being hit to the south, and both of them fail. As by now we know what to expect, and we're pretty well set up. As one of our blokes said, they never had a chance. So that's what Balmoral looked like. And so you've got guns, you've got infantry companies, all the good stuff. If you know what the symbols mean, you'll find that highly interesting. Another night attack. Repelled. We've got Centurions, we've got artillery, we've got aircraft. We lose 2, 14, 6 North Vietnamese killed. Then D Company 1 RAR moves out, and they're going to clear the position. And it's believed that there's an extensive enemy bunker position out there. And then what happened was the first combined infantry armour attack by Australians since the Second World War. So there's a bunker system out there, the tanks with the infantry, and they're going to go and clear them out. The tanks were used, the canister rounds, the one I told you about, so they just strip the jungle right off the position, so you can see where all the dugouts are, and then the infantry go in with flamethrowers and grenades and all the other good stuff that you carry around and do the job. D Company break contact after dusk and returned to Coral, so we gave them a bit of a stick, didn't lose any casualties, and returned home. We're pretty happy. We experienced another heavy attack against Balmoral. A feint was made on one side, and then the main enemy attack came in against the other side, and it was over the same open ground that had been used in the first attack. Solid defensive fire, machine guns, artillery, mortars, 50 cal, tank canister. What do you think happened to the attack? Didn't last very long. Helicopter gunships and Spooky and Puff, the Magic Dragon, came in, and same old story at dawn. The North Vietnamese broke contact and withdrew. 2 Centurions with infantry cleared up enemy parties trapped in B-52 bomb craters. So B-52s had been bombing in the area, and some North Vietnamese had occupied those bomb craters to avoid the canister and everything else, and our tanks and infantry went out there and took care of them, and they just backfilled in the bomb craters to bury the bodies. And we counted over 42 killed, got 7 captured. Right, so it's all happening. On Thursday, C Company goes out on a patrol. They dismount, make contact with North Vietnamese in more bunkers. Our blokes are pinned down. There are only 2 working tanks left, but out they go. Canister, HE, 8 bunkers are destroyed. Helo gunships, artillery come in. The infantry is extracted, and the force withdraws to Coral. We lost 1 killed, 7 wounded. North Vietnamese lost about 45. Further attacks, and at this point, we've done our job, and we begin to withdraw back down to Phuc Tuy province, and the last elements depart the AO on the 6th of June. Total Australian casualties over those 25 action-packed days were 26 killed. Summary, enemy losses. So here's, if you can read that, so we reckon they lost about 267, maybe another 60, 7 wounded, prisoners of war detained, surrendered, captured a whole bunch of weapons and food and stuff, and we lost 26 killed over those times. Issues. So the issues of this particular campaign, first of all, the beginning was it was a shocker in terms of planning. It really was. It was not a good day for Australian military planners, and we were flipping lucky not to get rolled by that first initial attack. The Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese were quite correct. Hit them while they've got only one leg on their ground and their trousers are down around their ankles. You get them while they are unprepared and embarrassed. We didn't fully understand enemy strength and capacity, inadequate orders, appalling fly-in, and then defence. What defence? We were lucky to get away with it. Here are some of the young blokes, young Australians, young fellas at the time, 18, 19, 20. Good young blokes. God bless them. And that was it. So, an hour ago you knew nothing about the battles of fire support base Coral and Balmoral. You now know that over those 25 days in 1968, our fellas were up to their armpits in snapping alligators, and it was busy time, and we lost a lot of young blokes, and we gave the North Vietnamese a lot of stick. Any questions?